I've researched thousands of ETFs over the years, but right now there's 5 ETFs that are flashing major buying opportunities that have asymmetric upside. And of course, in my $1.2 million account, I am capitalizing right now by buying them and by doing stock options in the right way. So let's break it down. Okay, so the first thing we have to talk about is going to be the S&P 500, and that is not what this video is about, but that is the hurdle rate and the foundation of every ETF that we choose right here. If we are not at least beating what the S&P 500 is doing, which in the last 5 years it did 80%, what are we really doing? Like, we're buying bad ETFs, we're not doing a good option strategy. We have to at least beat that in the long term. And now the second ETF that we have to talk about, which is like the second hurdle rate, is going to be the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ's this blue line right here. Did roughly 93% in the last 5 years. I mean, that's pretty good if you ask me. If you would have put in 10,000 bucks, you would have turned 10,000 into $20,000 in 5 years by doing absolutely nothing and having the diversification of the NASDAQ behind you. Doesn't look too bad when you think about it like that. But the point of this video is to talk about the ETFs that are doing better than the S&P 500 and better than the NASDAQ. Some of them are beat up, some of them are going to the moon, and we're going to talk about how to allocate and use options in the most efficient way to try to make yourself the most money on the upside, but also limit your risk on the downside because we are going to get a lot of volatility. So let's dive in a little bit more. Okay. The next ETF, which has a lot of potential right now. I feel like it's beat up, it's blown out of proportion. It's going to be the IGV software index. If we throw this on a chart, what percent are we down on IGV in the last couple months? 32%, the software index, because everybody is all worked up that AI is going to crush software. It's going to wipe software out. AI agents are going to just take the job of every single software company out there. Hey, maybe this is a humongous buy the dip opportunity right here. We got a sleeper down here on the bottom, which is BLV. This is a bond fund that we're going to talk about. And then, of course, the ones up here on the top. They're heavily related to AI, to tech, to chips, to semiconductors. They're going to the moon. It's possible they are going to keep going to the moon. So we're going to break this down in a very simple way of how the heck do we allocate and make money with this stuff. Okay, so I have my favorite 5 of those ETFs lined up side by side. I excluded the gold one and I also excluded the bond one so that we could really get the main ones compared side by side. S&P 500, NASDAQ, some of the tech stuff over here. So we're just going to scroll through and I'm going to show you how I break this stuff down to figure out, hey, do we buy this stuff right now or not? And is it likely to continue to keep going higher? That's what we have to break down right now. First thing we're going to do is look at the top 10 holdings in each fund, because when you are buying an ETF, you have to at least know what companies are held within it, because all you're doing is simply just buying a basket of a bunch of companies. If you buy a basket of things you don't like, it's probably not a good ETF for you. So if we take a look at what's happening in VOO to start, S&P 500, roughly 7% Nvidia, 6% Apple. I'm not going to run through every single thing here, but you can see it's relatively spread out, but it is still very heavily concentrated in tech. I mean, I get it, this is chips. I get it, this is like cell phones. This is Microsoft. They do more software stuff. Amazon is more, retail spending. Google is more like search and ads. Broadcom is definitely in the AI sector. Meta's in the ad sector. Tesla's in cars and humanoid robots. And Berkshire, we all know what Berkshire has. They're basically just like a holding company for a bunch of different other companies out there. So it's relatively diversified right here. But you saw on the charts that the S&P 500 was this green line right here. It didn't outperform many things in the long term, to be completely honest with you. And the reason for that is because it's not as heavily focused on tech and AI. We all know those stocks have been absolutely exploding lately. And the major problem with that is that most retail investors, they get the big bad F word, the FOMO word. They see the stock going up, the ETF going up, they want to buy call options, they want to go sell put options, and they end up doing all this stuff at the exact wrong time. If we go back and look at the chart right here, we get it that the AI and tech stuff has been going to the absolute moon. But is it a bubble or is it going to keep going higher? That is what we have to figure out, because just because something's going up and just because the S&P looks like it's underperforming and boring, it might look good in the long term, because what if these goes like this and go down? It's very, very possible. So that's why it's critical to go through the holdings right here and really understand what is in these ETFs and know if you actually want to own those companies or not. So VOO is definitely spread out. I do think that in the long term, VOO is probably going to underperform a little bit. But if you are worried about market valuations or volatility, VOO is going to be a smoother ride. these other ETFs to the right, they're going to be much more bumpy because the stocks that they hold within are more volatile stocks, higher beta stocks, more high expectations are priced in. And when those high expectations don't get met when the overall market falls, those stocks are going to fall down harder, which is going to drag the index down harder with it. So VOO is something I like for the long term. I'm roughly 30% of my portfolio right now in VOO, and I'm perfectly fine with that. But then let's upgrade one step to how these things performed in the last 5 years. We got triple Q. You can see it's a little bit heavier in Nvidia, a little bit heavier in Apple, pretty much a little bit heavier in most of the tech stuff, but then it drops off some of the things at the tail end. So if we scroll up a little bit here, you can see that the S&P 500 has roughly 518 total companies in it, and the NASDAQ triple Q has about 103. So within this 103 bucket, it's basically just the tech-heavy companies out of this 518 bucket that are then added to the NASDAQ. So it is definitely more tech-heavy, and you can see it's a higher percent versus what's over here on the left for the S&P, but that's also going to give you more volatility. When you get more volatility, if that makes you nervous, you're going to make a little bit more in the bull markets, but you're also going to lose a little bit more in the bear markets. Like you could see that this ETF up here, SMH, it's much more volatile in the downswings than if we actually throw this on a percentage basis. This downswing right here for Liberation Day tariffs, you can see that SMH went down roughly 31%, but if we remove that and we figure out how much the S&P actually went down, it's kind of hard to see, but it went down roughly 15%. So this went down roughly double. And if you're trying to buy these ETFs right now at a time that the overall market valuation is a little bit hot, you're kind of playing with fire. So what you want to do is these high-tech ETFs that are flying to the sky right now, you want to buy those when there's blood in the streets and when there's volatility, when people are nervous, which I know it might seem like we're never going to get the dips, but trust me guys, dips always come, volatility always comes, and I do think that you're going to get a better opportunity to add instead of having to add up here on the top. So let's keep flowing through it. So triple Q is definitely a little bit more tech heavy. I do have roughly 30% of my portfolio in triple Q, and I do think it's going to do very, very well in the long term. Now, if we go one step to the right, big opportunity right here, but a little bit higher risk. The IGV software index. You can see we have Microsoft and Palantir and Oracle and Salesforce and Palo Alto, AppLovin, Adobe, Intuit, CrowdStrike. All these companies right here have been getting absolutely clobbered and destroyed because everybody's all worked up about what does AI really mean for these software companies? Is AI truly going to crush these companies? Are you going to be able to just go get an AI agent and tell it what to do, and it's going to just crush the moats of all these companies and they're just going to go kaput? I mean, that's kind of how the market is pricing these software ETFs and stocks right now. If we take a look at the ETF going from peak to trough, you can see that that ETF right now is down 33% in just a few months. 33% in a few months is honestly a lot. And a lot of those companies within an ETF are now largely undervalued. If we go back and look, you could see that Microsoft is undervalued in my opinion. Palantir's not. Oracle is kind of undervalued. Salesforce is. Palo Alto is kind of there. AppLovin's kind of there. Adobe's cheap. Intuit's cheap. CrowdStrike's kind of there. So it's like, some of these companies are clearly cheap. Some of them clearly aren't. But do you want to hold the totality of the bucket right here, where the top 10 holdings are going to be 60% of the portfolio? In my opinion, to be straight with you, the answer is no. I don't want to hold every software company because I truly do fear that AI is going to crush some software companies, maybe like Adobe, for example. I talked about Adobe in previous videos. You could go watch the one before this and I cover it. But I'm going to wait till Adobe reports earnings to get a better thesis of where I think this stock is going to go. But I don't want to hold every company in the IGV index, to keep it very simple. I want to pick and choose the ones that I like. So IGV is something that if you feel like AI is not going to crush software, this dip that we're on right now, you can make a lot of money if this is going to rebound, because it's going to rebound very, very sharp if the market realizes we are pricing this down too much. Now, if we go to number 4, we could look at the big bad SMH, and you can see that it is very, very heavy in NVIDIA. 18% of the portfolio is in NVIDIA, and the top 10 holdings within are 74% of the ETF. So you better freaking love the top 10 companies right here. NVIDIA, TSM, like TSM I love, NVIDIA I love, Broadcom I love, Micron I love, ASML I love. But are you getting good companies at a good price? That is the name of the game right here. We don't just want to buy a company that we like. We have to buy a company that we like and buy it for a good price. That's where the money's made in the stock market. Now, if we flip back to the chart, you can see this lighter blue line right here is going to be the SMH. On a 5-year basis, this is up 247%, which is absolutely insane. If we flip back to Schwab, we could go over here and take a look at the performance and chart. We do it on a 5-year basis right here. Basically, if you would have invested in SMH and you would have put in $10,000 5 years ago, your $10,000 would have been $36,000 with dividends reinvested. Not bad for a 5-year investment if you ask me. You over tripled your money in 5 years in an ETF where you have various different companies of diversification. That is amazing if you ask me. Now, a lot of this ROI is largely because of how heavy this is in NVIDIA. Remember, if we go back to the portfolio, you can see that SMH is 18% in NVIDIA. NVIDIA has been on an absolute tear lately. If we just go flip over to NVIDIA and we load this up, you can see that this line right here is NVIDIA absolutely on a runner, up 734% in the last 5 years. So if it wasn't for NVIDIA, would that ETF have really done that good? If you ask me, the answer is going to be a no. But hey, NVIDIA did do good. And to be honest with you, I feel like NVIDIA is close to intrinsic value right now. And I do think that it is ready to take the next leg higher. I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but I do think with time, NVIDIA is going to continue to grow. So if we take a look at the ETF overall, I definitely like all the companies within it. And if the AI story continues, I think that SMH has explosive, extreme upside in the coming years. But trust me, guys, it's going to be a very, very, very bumpy ride. It's not going to be straight up and to the right. We already talked about this on a chart, how there is extreme volatility. The dip for Liberation Day tariffs was literally double what the S&P 500 did. Do you want to allocate right now, or do you want to wait for a pullback? It's up to you. I do think that we're going to get a lot of volatility, and I do think that the overall market valuation is a little bit hot. So when the S&P and NASDAQ do take a little bit of a breather, it's going to bring everything down with it, just like you saw right here. And if I go over here and flip this to a 1-year chart and we take a look at what really happened in April with this market, you can see that a lot of these ETFs got hit pretty hard. But you can notice this red line right here is going to be the gold index, which did a lot better. And you could also see this line down here, which is going to be BLV, the bond fund. You can see that the bond fund really did nothing. Of course, you're collecting like a 5% yield in the background. So even though it's down, 8%, it's really kind of like flat / down a couple percent. It did its job in this dip right here. But you could definitely see that there's a lot of volatility in this time frame right here. And if I just go hide these other ones, you could see how SMH actually did, so it's a little bit cleaner to see. You can see that SMH, which is going to be this bluish line right here, it definitely fell a lot more, as we already talked about, going down roughly 32%. Meanwhile, the S&P, like I said, went down roughly, we'll say 18-ish%. So roughly a double how far that went down. So with things a little bit overvalued right now, you got to be very careful with ETFs like that. But let's go into the last one right now, and then we'll summarize this of which ones I'm going to buy right now and what option play that I'm going to do. If we take a look at PSI, this is heavy, heavy, heavy in the AI and chip sector. We got Micron, Lam Research, Ultra Clean Holdings, KLA, Intel, ACM. Like, this is very heavy on AI and chips and stuff like that. If you believe in that sector and you think that you're getting these companies right here at a good price, this could do very, very well. But to be honest with you, this is going to be my least favorite right here out of the 5. I would much rather have SMH because it's just a better ETF, better companies that I actually want to have exposure to. So the combination of SMH, Triple Q, and VOO is where I feel like the money is going to be at in the coming years. And that's what I have on the chart right here. My top 3 favorite ETFs going forward. S&P 500 is the green line down here. The bluer line right here is going to be the Triple Q. And then the lighter line up here is going to be the big bad SMH. If you don't want to buy SMH, you could go buy something like SOX if you really want, which is this other green line in the background. It's just another ETF that tracks a semiconductor index. SOX and SMH are going to do very similar in the long term. I know you could clearly see that SMH did a little bit better, but these two are going to perform relatively similar in the long term likely. So actually these 4, we'll leave it at 4. These are my 4 favorite ETFs to hold for the long term. I am okay to allocate roughly 25% in each if you really want, but you have to understand that market valuations right now are definitely expensive. So when you get dips like this is a time to not only allocate to these ETFs by buying shares, but you want to do stock options down here too. So you want to sell portfolio secured puts down here. Like let's say you want to have your entire portfolio in SMH to keep this very simple. Let me hide these other ones right here. We're going to hide the stocks. We're going to hide the Triple Q. You want to have all your account in the SMH index. ETF falls. You want to go sell some portfolio secured put options. Great, you can make a lot of money doing that. The benefit of doing a portfolio secured put is that you could have all your money invested in SMH, and then you're using that collateral of the ETF shares to be able to go sell puts, generate cash flow, and then go reinvest that cash flow right here while the market in ETF is down. The benefit of doing the longer duration options is that, let's say you're going to generate $1,000 by selling puts on SMH by doing a 1 month put, for example, selling a 1 month put. $1,000, great. You're going to do good. You could go reinvest that $1,000 in right here when the market is undervalued. But if you do a 2-year option, what if you could collect $20,000 in cash flow? You could then put $20,000 into the ETF right here, and then, assuming you time the bottom perfectly, which you're not going to, but you could see that that move going up is 130%. So would you rather make 130% on $20,000 or 130% on $1,000? It's obvious, but that is why longer duration option contracts win, because you're allocating and capitalizing when it makes the most sense to do it. So if you want to watch a really good video on exactly how I do this portfolio secured put, keep your ratios in check so that you are never going to get wiped out if we get market volatility, watch the video right here, and I'll see you guys there.